Welcome back to Fassbinder Fridays. Today I've got a film that is a tough watch, no doubt about it, but I think it's a masterpiece. You're either going to love it or hate it. And I think that's kind of the case with all of Fassbinder's films. Uh, that is In a Year of 13 Moons. Now, I bought this, I've had this many years. This is a Fantoma release. This is a Region 2 DVD that has Martha and In a Year of 13 Moons. And there are some special features on it. It's got a introduction to the film and audio commentary. The Blu-rays on Fassbinder are coming out. They're coming out. I mean, quite a lot of his films you can get Criterion Blues on, and Powerhouse Indicator, Second Sight, and Arrow are putting out Region 2s. But I don't know that there is a Blu-ray for it, In a Year of 13 Moons. This film is a divining rod, and it's very prescient in today's eyes because it's the story of a man who's he has a wife and child, but he falls in love with another man, and essentially he goes to Casablanca to get his junk cut off because he thinks that by doing so he'll appear more appealing to this guy that he's just in love with. Well, what happens is he comes back and realizes he fucked himself over both ways. I mean, he's now a eunuch caught in between two sides of normalcy. You know, he doesn't feel right as a woman, and he misses what he had with his wife and daughter, and it's too late to go back to that. So he's just screwed, really, and he ends up going through a succession of unpleasantness. I mean, he's a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve. You know, he's an emotionally outward person, and everyone around him just is kind of a predator. And you know, he slowly descends into just a morass of depression and ultimately suicide. I mean, I guess that's a spoiler. I apologize if I'm spoiling it, but I mean, if you look it up, it's pretty clear from the film that that's what's going on here. All that aside, it's a character study piece. I mean, it's a melodrama. It's a melodrama, and it's obviously transgender. It's interesting that in today's world, we celebrate, like in the case of Bruce Jenner, you know, the transgender stuff. I mean, this is 40 years ago that Fassbinder's looking at this and putting this under the microscope. I mean, what I think about is interesting about Fassbinder is he puts human nature, human emotions under this microscope unabashedly, and it you know, his opinions on things as it permeates from the film may not be to your liking, but you know, I don't think he cares. I think he's just presenting his feelings and thoughts on film. In this case, you know, in 1978, obviously he lost a friend to suicide, so this film kind of is an exploration of that event, as well as it's not about transgender. It's just the character's a transgender character. It's not about that at all. What it's really about is a person that's emotionally caught between conflicted feelings of normalcy on both, what we would say is both sides of the equation from a sexual standpoint. Yeah, and ultimately it's just a search for people's search for companionship and love when everyone around them is a predator. I mean, it's a very critical look at society, and you know, I think it's a fascinating film. A lot of people are going to look at this and say it's boring as hell, and I can see that, but there's a lot going on here. It's very dialogue driven. There is a really, if the whole subject of transgender doesn't disturb you enough, there's another off-putting thing about this film, which has a a pretty graphic, I mean, not pretty graphic, it is really graphic slaughterhouse scene. I mean, in detail. I mean, this goes way beyond even some of the stuff in Necromantic. I mean, it's soup to nuts slaughterhouse, and that's going to make a lot of people cringe. But that's reality, and I think Fassbinder, what he's trying to do is take the gloves off, take the curtain, pull back the curtain, and show life in its unabashed form. I mean, this film may turn you into a vegan. I mean, after it's over, but that it is what it is. I mean, that's meat production is, comes from slaughterhouses. The character Irwin in this case, who becomes Elvira, you say it Elvira. I mean, it looks like Elvira, but it's they pronounce it Elvira. Was a butcher. So the symbolism in this is that you could take it a number of different ways. Is it symbolism for the mutilation of your body in an attempt to find yourself and find love, or is it just something more obvious and black and white than that? I mean, I took it to be symbolism for Irwin was a butcher. He mutilated himself in Casablanca and comes back and finds out that the guy, didn't care about him at all. I mean, he was just living in a kind of a fantasy, an emotional fantasy. And so he mutilated himself a la the slaughterhouse in an attempt to find love, and it failed miserably. I mean, that's basically it. Very sad, very depressing, but I'm of the opinion that some melodramas, particularly those that are like really downers like that, to me it's not a downer, because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm thinking, well, shit, no matter how many problems I have, it can't be as bad as this, so to me it's kind of an uplifting thing to watch someone have a really downward progression in a film. But that's not, obviously it's not for everybody. It's going to bring a lot of people to the depths of depression watching this film. But it's a fantastic film, beautifully shot, unabashedly told, and 40 years before we really had the concept of transgender and all that coming to the forefront, and then celebrated, really. I mean, it's practically celebrated now on the Bravo channel. 40 years ago, Fassbinder was using that. This is not a film to me about transgenderism. Transgenderism in this film is Fassbinder is just using it as a tool to demonstrate the inherent flaws in this character who is wears his emotions on his sleeve. And by the way, in A Year of 13 Moons, so the title is about every 7 years, the emotional index of some people goes through the roof, and that has to do with like the years 1978 and 1957, I think, and 1992 going forward. At the time he did this film, if you did the math on when 13 Moons would occur again, that was, I think, 1992. And in those years, you have these horrible succession of events that happen to very emotional people. That's the basis of the title. So yeah, I mean, it's a film that I think needs to be seen. I would say this: every Fassbinder film needs to be seen. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I do think that you can get something out of it if you're a cinephile. It's a fascinating exploration into the human condition, and I do like those films. I don't obviously I'm focused more on horror, but I do like to kind of mix it up a little bit with those type of melodramas every once in a while. Not a steady diet of them. I don't think I could take it, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It's been a few years since I'd seen it. There's an audio commentary with Julian Lawrence, who's kind of Fassbinder's longtime friend. I haven't listened to that yet, but yeah, that's going to do it for Fassbinder Fridays. Let me know what you think, and if you've seen the film, what your thoughts are. Thanks for watching.